Hello and welcome. In this video we will build a password generator using Vue.js. It is going to have configurable options like whether or not the password should contain numbers, special characters, and what the length of the password should be, whether it should be uppercase, lowercase, or mixed case. So let's get started by creating a new Vue project. So we do that by using npm init vue at latest. Okay, so it's going to prompt us for the project name. I'm going to call it password generator, and I'm going to stick with all the defaults for the rest of the prompts. Okay, so then the project is now created. Okay, we can go into the project and let's install our dependencies using npm install. Okay, now that the dependencies are installed, let's open it up in our text editor. I'm using Visual Studio Code. Okay, so now that it is open, let's build it by using npm run dev. It's going to build a project and watch for changes and keep reloading the browser using the live reload. Okay, so if you click here, and I'm going to bring it over here like this, right? And now let me bring the text editor over here, and let's see. Yep, this looks good. Now let's do some cleanup because this project contains a lot of these boilerplate, and let's get rid of it. So I'm going to go into src and let's delete this components folder. Right, so let's go ahead and do that. Okay. Alright, so inside of our app.vue, I'm going to delete everything, and I'm just going to put a blank template saying hello world. Alright. So the last thing that we want to do is we want to let's get rid of all of the CSS and the main.css because that's the file that we're going to use for our styles. Now let's delete these two files. Alright, so now we have a blank project here just saying hello world. Alright, so let's go into our app.vue and let's create our component. And let's say export default. Okay, and I'm going to create our the data section of our component, and it's going to contain the password, which is the password that we're going to generate, and a config. Okay, so this is going to actually control the options for generating the password, like whether it should be like uppercase, lowercase, should contain numbers, whether it should contain special characters, and what should be the length, right? So let's build everything. So the first thing that we want to have is, let me just close this. Okay, so it's going to be the password case, right? So by default we are going to set this to uppercase, but other possible values can be lowercase or mixed case. All right. So the second thing that we want to do is alpha numeric. Okay, so this is going to be a boolean property. Let's say by default it's going to be true, and then we're going to have another property here, which is going to be special characters. Let's set it to false, right? And the length I'm going to set by default to 10. All right. Okay, so I think I made a mistake here. So we're supposed to return an object from here. Okay, and these should be the properties of that object. Okay, so this looks good. It can contain 3 values. Let me just put the third value as well here. Okay, so we change it so Alright, so we have this. Okay, so that's pretty much the data that we're going to be working with. Now let's create a template. So I'm going to create a div here. Alright, and let's inside of here I'm going to create like a top section which is going to contain the title of the application and a box where the generated password is going to show. So let's call it output. Okay, so I'm going to give it an ID output. Alright, So let's put in h1 here, say password generator. So that's going to be the name of our application. Okay, and let's put a paragraph here, and this is where essentially we're going to be putting, the password that we generate. So let's, do some like this. Okay, so this is the password that we generated, and we're going to put that here. All right. So actually, you know what? Let's do this. Let me just put this in here. This placeholder text here. So it's kind of like a default, and print that here. Okay, so we can just say password. I'm just going to put this value in here. So this is looking good. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to create UI for these configurations. So let's get started on that. So I'm going to create a div. Okay, I'm going to give it an ID of config wrapper. Alright, and we're going to basically have like I'm going to divide it into 3 sections. One is going to be for password case. It's going to contain like 3 radio buttons. It can be uppercase, lowercase, and mixed case. And then we're going to have a second section which is going to contain these 2 checkboxes. And the third one is going to be for length. Okay, so let's create the first one. Okay, so let's create a config item. All right, let's create an h3 and let's call it password case. And okay, so I'm going to create a div here, right? And I'm going to create a label and call it for uppercase. So this is going to be a radio button. So I'm going to call it input radio name. Okay, so we need this to add like multiple choices of this for the same option. So for all the radio buttons that's going to have the name attribute case are going to be when you select one, the other one is going to be unselected. All right. So we're going to bind it to this password case. So we'll say config.password case. Alright, so let's add the ID. We'll call it uppercase, and the value for this is going to be uppercase as well. Alright, so now that we have the radio button, let's add a label, and it's good. Okay, now let's copy this and repeat it for lowercase. Let's do this. Let's say lowercase, and let's put lower here. Alright, and let's do it one more time for mixed case. Okay, let's say mixed case, and we're going to do it like this, mixed case. Alright, so by default we want it to be uppercase. Right, so if we refresh, it should be uppercase. Like if we set it to lowercase, yeah, it works. Let's bring it back to uppercase, and let's collapse that and create the second config item. So I'm going to say config item, and let's put an h3 and call it character types. Okay, so let's add a div here, and let's add labels. So the first one is going to be for alpha numeric, right? And let's put a checkbox now. Okay, so we're going to say the name is going to be character types alpha numeric. Let's give it like a descriptive name. So we'll do remodel, and it's going to be bound to the config.alphanumeric, and it's going to have an ID of alphanumeric. Right, so let's create another checkbox for special characters. So we'll do special characters, and it's going to be bound to the this special characters. Yep. And yeah, we do need to put the labels here. So we'll say alphanumeric, and the second one is going to be for special characters. Right, so yep, so if we go down here and set this to true by default, so by default these are both going to be true. Now if we change this to like false, yep, so these are working. So I'm going to bring these back to the default values that we had. Okay, so let's create the last config item for the length. Alright, so we're going to say config item and it's going to, let's give it an h3 and say length, and we'll do input, and it's going to be of type number, and let's give it an ID so we can style it in our CSS. I'm going to call it numLength, and let's bind it to the config.length. Let's say config.length. Alright, and once we're done with that, let's create the button that's going to generate it. So let's give it an ID so we can style it, generate, btn generate, and we need to add a click listener, which is going to call the generate function on the component, and let's put this generate text here. Alright, so this is looking good. Let's create this function. Okay, so here our data is ending, so we're going to create a methods object, and it's going to contain a generate function. So let's just alert something and see if this button is working. Yep, so everything is working. Like if we change this to make sure the data binding is working here. Okay, so this is looking good. Right, so let's now go into CSS and style this. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to bring in a font. Okay, so I'm going to go to fonts.google.com, and what I'm looking for is Roboto. Yeah, let's pick this one. Okay, so we're going to select import, and let's copy this, and let me just bring that in here. Right, and this is going to be the font family Roboto sans serif. So let's close that, and now let's first add some normalization. Right, so we're going to say margin 0, padding 0. Okay, and we'll say font. Let's paste that. Okay, so now this font is a little bit nicer. Okay, so let's start with the output div that we added. Okay, so we're going to make it text align center. Yep. And now let's style the heading itself. So we'll say output h1, and we'll say padding 10 pixels, and background, let's make it black. Okay, and the color, let's say white. Alright, and let's give some padding. So I'm going to give it 30 pixels padding. Okay, so yep, it's looking like a banner. These are some basic stylings that we're going to do. Not super fancy. So we'll do output p. This is going to be where the password is, this thing. The generated password is going to show. So let's make it bold, and let's make the background brown, and let's make the color white. And this text is a little bit too pushed together, so let's add some letter spacing here. So I'm going to say letter spacing, let's say 3 pixels. Yeah, now it's looking a little bit better. And let's add some padding. Okay, so if you add like a 20 pixels padding, now it's looking much better. Alright, so now that we're done with the top part, now let's work on the config wrapper. Okay, so we're going to add like a margin top 50 pixels. Okay, so it says to push it down a little bit, and then we're going to add some padding, and what we're going to do is if we make the screen bigger, right, so it's still pushed to the left, right, so we want to bring it to the center. So in order to do that, we can use margin left auto and margin right auto, right? And I think it's still not going to work because this width is full. So we want to set a max width and set it to 500 pixels. Okay, so if you check it now, yeah, it's going to stay in the center, right? So the next thing that we want to do is we want to add some margin here. It's going to separate these config items. So in order to do that, we can do config wrapper, and we want to target the config item inside of that, right? So let's add a margin top 10 pixels. So this is, you know, a little bit separated, but you know, these headings and these fields are all, you know, pushed up. So let's work on that. So let's say config wrapper, config item, and h3. Let's add some margins here. So I'm going to add a margin top. This will be 30 pixels, right? And a margin bottom 10 pixels. Right. So you know, now they are looking a little bit, you know, like they can breathe. And the next thing that we want to do is, you know, we want to, you know, apply flexbox to separate these input fields. So do config wrapper, config item, and div, right? So we'll say display flex, justify content space between, right? So now it's looking a little bit better, right? And after that, what we can do is we can style this length field. So let's target that, give it an ID of num length. So let's make sure. So go back, yep, num length, and let's do width 100%. Okay, so it's, you know, full width, and let's do a border of 2 pixels, solid CD CD CD. Okay, so sort of a gray color. Let's add padding 5 pixels. Right. So you know, when we do this, you know, it goes a little bit, you know, this margin, this little bit of padding that there is gone. So in order to fix that, we can use the box sizing property and set it to border box. Right. So you know, it's perfectly aligned now. And let's say, you know, increase the font size of the field. Let's say 22 pixels. Okay, so you know, it looks okay now. So now let's start the button. Okay, so let's say button generate. Alright, so first let's add some margin. So to the top, so let's say margin top 30 pixels. And we're going to give it a 100% width. Okay, we'll give it a font size of 22 pixels as well. Alright, so let's use a background, and I'm going to use this color 008080. Okay, and we're going to have the white foreground, and let's make it uppercase. We can do that in HTML, but let's just do it here, and let's add some padding, and let's change the border color. Let's say 2 pixels, and we're going to use the same color that we used for the background, 8080. And you know, like if we hover over it, you know, the cursor doesn't change. So let's make the cursor pointer. Okay, yep, it's better. And let's give some border radius of 5 pixels. Let's add some letter spacing, 3 pixels. And so let's add a, you know, hover state, but we can generate and hover, and let's just change the background color a little bit, you know, a little bit different shade of the color that we used here. So I'm going to use this color 015C 5C. So if you like hover over it, yep, you know, this is looking better. And the last thing that I would like to do is, you know, add font weight bold, so you know, to make it pop a little bit. Yeah. So, and if we go back here, okay, so I don't want this to show until, you know, when we have generated the password. So if we make this, you know, like this, so this ribbon is showing here. So in order to, you know, fix that, we can make this, add this vif directive here. I'm going to say vif password is not equal to empty. Okay, so so if there's going to be like a password value, then that is going to show, otherwise it's not going to show. Right? So we can also, you know, leave this. So if, you know, any like falsy value, like an empty string, null, then it's going to, you know, resolve that to false, and it's not going to show that. So and the next thing that we want to do is we want to implement the generate function, right? So let's come here and get to work on that. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to like have a pool of characters, right? And we want to, like, you know, randomly pick you know, characters out of that, and, you know, suggest that as, you know, the password. Okay, so let's create like a variable pool. Okay, and now based on these, you know, configuration options, we're going to, you know, decide what that pool is, right? So let's say like if this dot config dot uppercase, okay, so let's say password case is equals to uppercase. Okay, so then our pool should only contain the capital letters. Okay, so I'm going to type in all the alphabet, G H I J K L M N O P Q R S T. All right, so, you know, all uppercased, and we're going to say like if it is, the password case is lowercase, then we want to have the pool to contain, you know, only lowercase characters. P H I J K L M N O P Q R S T U V W X Y Z. All right, and if, you know, neither of those are true, then it means that, you know, this mixed case is selected. Then in that case, we want to have the pool which contains both of these. Okay, so we can just say this, and in the end, we can, you know, append that on. And so this is going to be our pool, right? And now here we want to implement this alphanumeric check. So we'll say if this dot config dot alphanumeric, right? So then it means that it should also contain numbers, right? And, you know, whatever, you know, the option above is, we are going to append, you know, these numbers so that it can pick from those two. And in the end, we have this, you know, special characters. So let's implement that as well. So we'll do this dot config dot special characters. So if this is true, then we're going to, you know, put some special characters in there. So we're going to say, let's put all of these, you know, press shift and type everything, and you know, let's leave the parentheses, and let's add some you know, arithmetic operations. Okay, all right, so what we can do now is let's you know, alert the pool and, you know, see, you know, what we're getting. So right now it's uppercase and it's alphanumeric, so we're getting all uppercase and from 1 to 0. Okay, so this is just pool, you know, not the password that's generated. So if you select it to lowercase, it's going to be this. If it's set it to mixed case, it's going to be this. Okay, so if we like remove the alphanumeric, it's just going to be the characters, and if we make it special characters, it's going to have that. So this is looking good, right? Now let's get to, you know, the random string generating part. So let's create a variable here, call it generated string, right? And actually, you know, we don't need that. Actually, we have this dot, you know, the password property, and we can just set that to this dot password is equals to empty. Okay, and we're going to run a for loop here. Okay, from I from 0 to, you know, the length that we have here. Okay, so that is inside of our config.length and I++. Okay, now we are going to, you know, create a random index, you know, between, we have the length of the pool, and we need like a random index from 0 to the end of that, you know, the length of that pool. So we could do const random index equals, we're going to use this code to generate a random number between two numbers. Okay, so we're going to say math.floor, we're going to say math.random, okay, and we're going to multiply it with the pool.length. Okay, so this is a random index that we got. Now what we can do is we can say generated, not generated string, we're going to say this.password plus equals, so we're going to append on we're going to use pool.characterAt, and we're going to pass in the random index, right? So it's going to run this loop, and it's going to draw this number of characters, and it's going to put that in the password, and yeah, by the end of the loop we're going to have that many characters inside of the password, and it's going to show up here. So let's see if it works. So if you do generate, okay, so it does that. So if you do lowercase, fine, 10 characters, alphanumeric, okay, so now this is going to give us lowercase, but if you put special characters in there, okay, so it's working now. Okay, let's do mixed case, alphanumeric, special characters. Yep. We can also change the length. So if we make it 15, it should give us 15 characters. If we make it 20, so yep, this is looking good, and yeah, I guess this is it. And this is how you use Vue to create a password generator application. Alright, so this is it. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next one.